Okay, so I've mentioned that I've been trying to make or be consistent about my writing process this week, and I've been doing pretty good about that. However, I've been in a little bit of a funk since I started it too. Um, started the idea was to focus on the yeah, basically the weeds among the plants that you want in your life, right? And the story that came up really quick was the one where I was very temporarily involved with somebody in undergrad that I commented and have always commented every time I've mentioned this whole connection that I knew from the beginning that he wasn't capable of handling my energy, right? But I've been thinking about this, and especially since that's the thing that's kind of been at the forefront of my mind on the writing thing, just because that's where it went first, and I felt like I needed to follow that out. Of course, that path eventually leads to the guy that was harassing me over the phone, text messaging, for a very brief while after that. And sort of, while I ended up blocking him, some of the things he said still ended up having an impact, which weren't realized until, years later. So this whole thing I've been thinking about. And, I keep going back to that point of knew from the get-go that he couldn't handle my energy, right? But then I started thinking about it. It's like, I also never gave him a chance to see one way or another. I automatically knew that he wasn't going to be able to, and so I set up the situation to make it where it came to its abrupt end and played out as it ended up playing out, right? Which wasn't less than ideal. But I've been thinking about this a whole lot this week, and like that's the biggest point was I never gave anyone a chance to prove themselves first. I just automatically assumed and set it up to basically block anything further from being able to possibly come up, right? And so then I was thinking about this whole point, and it's like, so this all goes back to that shit with my family, ultimately, because, it's like, I grew up having it made very clear that I was too much for people. So everything that I did was set myself up to block other people out, because I was too much. I saw myself as too much. I agreed with the story that had been, imposed on me by my family. And so I ultimately ended up blocking every opportunity where I could have potentially connected with people. Right? So it's been a very humbling and aggravating thing to be considering. But on that end, and going back to that, being a little bit of an instigator of tower moments for people, it's like I can absolutely see that too. But in this case with this person, that I automatically, I didn't even give him a chance one way or another before I was setting myself up to completely destroy this thing, prove my point, and have him back the fuck up, right? But in that, he'd gone from the year before. This was while I was, as I was moving into the Baptist house. So the year before, since his dad was the house pastor of this place, he was there a lot. He was a frequent feature, and he may as well have been living there from what it sounds like. Yeah, he had his own thing elsewhere, but at the same time, those were still some of his best friends, right? So then, when I set up this whole thing to go crumbling down, he didn't come back. Like, he was there a very small handful of times, right? Because I was there, right? So, it was a means of proving this point to myself, but then it also destroyed this thing where he had connections to this group of people as well. So it's like I've been spending a lot of time turning this whole thing around in my head and just considering this other level of things, and it's very aggravating to really see various points in my life where I specifically set it up to prove the point that I was too much for people and people could not handle me, to get some space between me and them, because that was what I'd been conditioned with from my family, right? So I believe that I'm too much for people, so I'm going to go out of my way to provide the circumstances which prove this point, this whole self-fulfilling prophecy thing, right? So, and then because it ends up working out where the self-fulfilling prophecy has been fulfilled, that confirms to me that I'm too much for people and people can't handle me, all the while blocking any connections from being able to possibly happen, friend or otherwise. So it's been very aggravating. I mentioned yesterday that my mom had apologized last night. We had this conversation where I mentioned that from the platelet donation attempt that ended up not being able to work out because my iron's too low, at that point in time. However, I did learn that my weight's up like 15 pounds anyway. 9 pounds specifically in the past 3 weeks. And of course, what's happened in the past 3 weeks was, my dad took himself off his off his CPAP machine for 2 or 3 weeks and ended up having another stroke, right? That was on the 2nd. And then exactly 1 week later, I have to take my mom to the ER because she fell and broke her back, right? And since then, I've been running appointments for them because, of course, she's on heavy-duty pain meds. She can't be driving with those, and, my dad's not been cleared to drive yet, even though he still every now and then will have his fuck you moments and do it anyway, because he is incapable of thinking about anybody but himself. So yeah, it's like in the past 3 weeks where I have gained 9 pounds, there's all this family drama that's, never ending, right? And, of course, my mom goes out of her way to get all the junk food that she knows people will be enticed by, and thus brings it in the house. So the Oreos, the Dr. Pepper pisses me off because I had like 3 that and it wasn't over like a short span of time. It was like my aunt wanted to go out to Taco Bell one day, so I ended up getting a root beer. Another day, she wanted me to take her to the gas station so she could get a tea, and I decided to get a root beer. And it's like one other day that I remember how much time it was, but my mom was like, oh, she's drinking root beer. So next thing I know, there's like 2 6-packs of like the bottles, and then 2 cases of 12 of the cans. It's like, the fuck, I didn't want that many, but then there's also the freaking ice cream, so we could do the root beer float thing. And as I've said with her, it's like, if I know my father has not been in the ice cream, I might do that, right? If I know my father has been in the ice cream, I'm not touching it, because he eats straight out of the carton, and I don't want that kind of nastiness, right? I'm pretty sure I've been pretty abundantly clear that my father's kind of disgusting on that end, right? And so, speaking of that, so I've talked a lot about how he doesn't ever clean up after himself, and he very much goes out of his way to leave a mess to be somebody else's problem to have to deal with, right? And I've talked about how it was like, when I first really started noticing it, there would be trash wherever. My brother mentioned the apple core that he left on the freaking end table one day. And I was noticing all the fruit snack wrappers that were in the armrest of the couch. And then, I would go through these spans of time where I would get like in the mood to clean, and I would like do a whole lot of efforting on cleaning around the house and getting things in better shape. Especially in the family or in the living room, because that's the room that I have stuff, right? Once I was realizing that every time I stopped doing something, then their stuff kept creeping in, then I stopped putting forth as much as the effort to clean up the stuff that they were just going to have get in the way. So, one of those things that has been an issue is my mom gets him these like multi-grain bagels, and so he'll eat the bagels, get seeds from the top of this damn thing or whatever, and leave a trail, right? And then, wherever his dirty dishes end up, he just leaves them there. He likes frequently dirty forks or spoons on the table, coffee cups, just leaving shit everywhere. I talked about how I stopped cleaning in the other rooms, aside from specifically my stuff that I used and got out and got dirty or whatever. And then I do unload the dishwasher regularly and make sure at least to put my stuff back in it, right? But so he has these freaking bagels and makes a mess with crumbs, with the seeds or whatever, and doesn't do anything about it, right? Because he feels it's somebody else's job to have to clean up after him. Well, since there's been so much other stuff going on with this damn family, my mother it actually came up a couple weeks ago, but we didn't have the chance to look into it very closely. But I decided that I was going to have a sweet potato, and I cooked it and got the stuff. I put a little bit of brown sugar on it. When I pulled the brown sugar out of the pantry, it felt like there was mouse pee or something on the bag. It's like there was no holes in the bag or anything, but it felt funky. And I didn't notice it immediately until I picked up the bag again and there were like 2 little mouse turds left on the stove where I had set it down. I was like, that's not good. You know, I pointed it out to my mom. I wanted to say it was before her back fiasco, but I won't swear to that. But it was something that had come out of the pantry. Well, we don't get in the pantry a whole lot right now because the door has been kept closed because Gidget was starting to help herself to what was in there on the floor where she could reach. So, you know, she goes in there and, oh, a bag of chips. Then we come back and there's like chips everywhere, or an empty bag or whatever. They've destroyed it, and, you know, God knows what else. One day she got one of those, like the protein drink packs that have like I don't think it was a breakfast one. I think it was just a protein drink. But it was like chocolate. And you know how they're like in these little cardboard type things with like a foil looking lining? Yeah. And she didn't have a whole lot of luck with it because, of course, she popped a hole in it and, you know, it went everywhere. But I walked in the house, it's like, why does it smell like chocolate? And then I started looking, and then I found a trail and found the trash from this thing. So we started having to close the pantry, right? So because the pantry is closed, we're not getting in it near as much to get things out, unless there's something in particular, like the brown sugar, that, you know, I was focused on. Before I had like my salad stuff in there as well, like the dried fruits and the nuts that I put on it and whatnot. But that was like, I put that in one specific spot. I could open the door, see it, grab it, and that was it. Well, we only found the 2 little mouse turds. Mom told Dad to put a mouse trap in there. Never happened. And today she saw something funky and started looking. Now, mind you, I was skating over here. I skated 7 miles this morning because I was trying to get my family out of my system, and I was really pissed at that whole realization that I was set up from the beginning to self-destruct and not allow anybody to come near me, right? Because, you know, my family had me convinced that I was too much for people, and, you know, because my experience of that was just that, you know, that only hurts me. So, you know, it was very much keeping me disconnected from other people. And then it was just the whole thing. Anyway, I was skating hard trying to get that out of my system this morning because it was just so aggravated. And when I get home, of course, mind you, my plan is to take a shower and then walk the dogs. That didn't happen. Because when I get home, she's busy cleaning off the counter because she got to looking and it looks like there's been a mouse in there. And it smells, and she said, I'm not finding anything open, like that's been chewed through or anything, you know, but she's like, it looks like this is mouse poop to me. Tell me otherwise. Can't tell her otherwise because that's exactly what it was. And I said, and it looks like the reason that you can't find anything open is because there's so many of these damn seeds everywhere and just crumbs, so all they have to do is follow the freaking trail. I said, there was, however, a package of crackers that was open, that, you know, had a clip on one end, and then I was looking at it, and it's like, this has been chewed through. So it's like, yes, they are into stuff, but stuff that was left out on the counter anyway, right? And I can't tell you how many times she's got, like, bread or bagels or whatever, and they just got added to the stack rather than put in, like, the freezer or anything, because My dad's like the only one that, I mean, he'll eat sandwiches and whatnot. I went through a phase where I ate a whole lot of like toast with strawberry preserves on it, but then, it's been a while since that's happened, like months. So if the bread doesn't make it to the freezer, it's generally not staying good very long, right? But it stays up there, and then she'll buy more without seeing if we have any, or checking that situation, because of course they're, I've mentioned that they're trying to force me to have to do the shit for them. It's like, I'm just not interested in it anymore. It's like, to some level, I feel like, yes, I live there, I should have to clean some stuff up and help out and whatnot. On the other hand, I'm so used to being the only one that gets started on a task, and then, after I start cleaning the garage and start making a dent in it, then, then she comes out and has to participate and whatnot. It's like, I'm sick of being the only one that is capable of seeing that there's a mess before efforting on it, right? So like the deal with the car used to fit in the garage, albeit just barely, although we could also open the back end on the edge, so it would open and we could unload the car in the garage in the case of it was storming outside or something. Can't do that now, right? So then what happened was they decided to sell the camper. Had to take everything out of the camper, and including the stuff that was gifted to them for free by the people who they bought the camper off of, just because they decided they weren't going to camp anymore. That's why they were selling the camper. And since my parents were getting ready to go camping a couple times and had gotten rid of their stuff years earlier, they got all these freebies thrown in with the thing, right? So rather than just letting that stuff go, Mom hangs on to all of it with the intention of selling it, right? It just shrunk the path so we couldn't put the car in there anymore. And then, she goes to this auction and stocks up on a bunch of shit that she didn't need from, my friend, or from our family friend's sister's passing. Her daughter has had an auction to try to raise some money. And of course, my mom, just being the generous person that she is, wanted more shit. And now there's like barely a path to be able to walk through. With her walker that she has to use to go through there now too. Yeah, that's real fun. I had to shove stuff out of the way so she could get through there. Because there again, they're trying to force me to have to do whatever. And it's really, really getting kind of annoyed at hearing, it's like I know exactly what it is every single time. And so my mom's youngest sister's daughter has been going over there. Mind you, she's the only one that knows she's one of few people that knows I have the YouTube thing. My brother and his family know, and then one aunt, the middle aunt, and then the youngest sister's daughter. They're the only ones that know. So she's been going over to visit my grandma, and I guess the other day she went over there and made dinner for my grandma was there with my grandma. And of course, knowing that I'm avoiding my grandma like the plague, my mom starts in with, this is a routine thing. It's like almost daily, I think, I hear how lonely my grandmother is, and that she keeps asking about getting a dog and blah, blah, blah. It's like, y'all are stupid if you get that woman a dog. And also, I will not be going over there to take care of it, right? So I guess the newest thing is possibly a bird. It's like, still not doing anything with that. If you all are getting her a bird to enjoy so she has company, have fun cleaning it and feeding it and taking care of it and all that stuff. I am not involved with that. I will not be involved with that. You are not pulling me into that again, right? So I've been avoiding it, right? So now, aside from just getting the sob story about how lonely my grandmother is, she'll start in on, or my mom will start in on how my cousin went over there and she's doing this, and it's really good that she's going over there and spending time with her grandmother because her grandmother's just so lonely and blah blah blah. And it's that very underhanded, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, and of course I'll give a shit. Right, the reason she broke her back is because she chose to do stupid shit she knew she shouldn't have been doing, and trying to carry all these big heavy things that she had no business carrying, and fell on my grandma's porch in the dark because she didn't even have the light on because she was just going to walk home and carrying all this stuff, right? But I get over there and I've sent her a message saying, I'm here. Don't get any response back. So I said another one. I was getting kind of pissed. It's like, I am here. And the next thing I know, my grandma's turned the light on the porch, and I see my mother's laying on the porch, flat on her back. So I just went over there, and apparently my grandma has this like life alert kind of thing, and she hits the button and it sends a message or a page to my mom and my aunt, the middle sister that lives next door, right? So because they're within range, I think it has to be like within 600 feet or whatever, it has this like doorbell chime that goes off. So I had just gotten to the porch, and then my aunt and uncle come flying over because they got this alert, but then they can't call or get a hold of my grandma in any way either, so they had to come check on her. Right, and it turns out that my grandmother had hit the button because my mom had dropped the massive pot that she had veggie soup in earlier, and I guess that was probably, I don't know if it hit the concrete or hit the house or what it was, but my grandmother heard it and obviously was all concerned. But I get over to the porch, and my aunt and uncle are over there at this time, and they're talking with my mother. I just send my brother, I was in the text message, and I just hit the little camera thing, and I hit the button on it, and I said, because of course she did. He's like, did she fall? It's like, of course she did. You know the answer to that. Of course she did. And not only did she fall, she broke her back. Cool. Well, so then she's been still going out of her way doing things that, like lifting more than she's supposed to per the weight restrictions because of the back injury, which I don't feel bad about it, honestly. I just am so freaking over this whole situation. I don't care. I'm ready to be out of that place. And just doing what I have to bide my time, right? So, she still has my dad. He's capable of lifting things. He won't. Because he thinks, like I've said many times, he feels other people are supposed to be cleaning up after him. He's not supposed to have to do anything anymore. He doesn't put forth the effort on anything. And I've been saying this to my mom for a while, but the past couple of days, she just keeps seeing it over and over and over again. And of course, especially today with having to clean up, all this like mouse shit and like all these freaking crumbs. Because I don't know if the toaster, like there's trays under it, right? There's supposed to be little trays to catch the crumbs. I don't know if they were just overfilled or if my dad's just that big of a slob, which I absolutely believe that is a possibility. Whatever else, right? It's gross. And so she got to looking, and it's fucking gross. And so she's been going through everything. And worth mentioning, my father, okay, so the first time, I went back through, and the trash can that she was putting stuff from the counter in was full. So, knowing that was the whole thing anyway, I went ahead and took the trash out, so that wouldn't be one of the complaints. So I take the trash out, and when I go out front, my dad's sitting there. Yeah, I went out the garage door, and he apparently had gone out the front door and was sitting by the pond. And he says, "Hi." I was like, I get really annoyed when he does that, because it's like I show up where he happens to be, and he decides to try to get me to talk to him or whatever. It's like, I don't want to talk. I've been pretty clear about not having a really good connection with my father on here. So, so I don't want to talk. But then, as I'm going in the house, he says, "Want to go get ice cream?" I was like, okay, that'll go over well. Because my mom and I had just had a conversation about where my dad had disappeared to. Because when I got home, he was sitting at the table. And, as I was in there, he just disappeared. I think I went outside to throw the ball for Gidge for a little bit, and then I came back in, and he was nowhere to be found. The best I figured was probably went to the back bathroom. Apparently he did not. He just went, to the front yard to sit by the pond. So I I go back in the house. I said, "I found him." She was like, "What?" I said, "He's out by the pond." She said, "Okay." I said, "And he wants to go get ice cream." And she said, "Absolutely not." I was like, I knew that. And she said, "Tell him to get his ass in here." It's like, oh, cool. Yeah, bring me in the middle of this again, too, right? So I went out there because I'd left the garage door open, and I said, "Mom said no ice cream." And she also said, "Get your ass in here." Of course, he bitched about it a little bit. But whatever. So he comes back in. And he's like, "Well, what do you want me to do?" And she's like, "Well, you can get this drawer out of here that you said you were going to." Because, she said that the drawer underneath the stove needed to come out and be cleaned out real well. And everything in it, right? Because it had mouse poop in it, too. And so that was his job. Because, of course, that's one of those big things that he can handle. And he was pissed that he was told to handle it. Right, because everybody's supposed to be cleaning up after him. He's not supposed to be participating anywhere. So, so he gets the thing and takes it outside, and he's all cranky. And then he comes back in and sits down on the couch for a few minutes and keeps bitching because, okay, at this point, Ziva's a bad risk. Whenever anybody is in the kitchen, if she thinks food is a possibility to find her way, she is not above trying to trip you to get it, right? So if she trips you and you drop something, oops, she's very deviant like that, right? So Kelpie is too smart for her own good. So she was doing that with my mom. She apparently got her foot stepped on, and my mom, almost fell over her backwards, or so she said anyway. So I went ahead and locked all the dogs outside just to have them out of the way. Especially because once my dad pulled that drawer out, I didn't want them going under it or trying to get in there to see whatever there was, right? Whenever dog food or anything ends up sliding under there, they'll find it and get real set on sniffing under there until I get the hint and go get the stick, which is it's like an old it had one of those like the rubber ends, like the rubber spatula kind of a thing. It has one of those, but the rubber end fell off, so it's just the stick. But it's like perfect to reach under there and knock stuff back out of the fridge or the stove. So so since the drawer was out, I didn't want them going under there, especially before it got swept up and all that. So I just went ahead and put them outside. Well, so then Taz is barking and it's this really high-pitched, annoying bark here lately, because he's not where the people are, and he can't be in the middle of everything, and it's just a big annoying pain in the ass, right? So my dad's sitting on the couch, and Taz is doing this real high-pitched yip every few seconds, and my dad's like just bitching at him every little bit. It's like, shut the fuck up, right? So I had washed my skate pads after I was done today, and as soon as they were done, I went and took them to dry outside. I put them on the swing, right? So got this porch swing out there, had my wrist guards, so it's like stuck up on the one of the little panels, or one of the little pieces of wood, whatever, like I did the bottom Velcro on it, and then hooked it so it could be in the sun, and then I just had my stuff out drying on the swing. Well, after my dad's bitched at Taz several times, he goes to the backyard and sits out on the porch. I was like, he better not have thrown my stuff, in the dirt and the dust, whatever. It's nasty back there. Their dog pees and poops on the porch, so now that's not even safe. Used to, it's like, for a long time, I had no problem going out there barefoot and just staying on the patio because none of the dogs were peeing on the patio. Now we have one that pees and poops on the patio. So, of course, I'm concerned that he's put my stuff where, his dog shit could potentially be at, right? Luckily, he didn't. He was sitting in a chair next to it. But then he was still out there bitching about Taz barking. It's like, you went out there knowing he was already barking. Why did you choose to do that, right? So, I just mentioned to my mom. See, I think I went outside to make sure he hadn't. No, I think I just took a ball break with Gidge. Went out there to throw the ball. And then he's out there, right? So it's like, of course, he's out there now, right? So trying to talk to me out there now, too. And it's like, nope, not interested, thanks. And so I, it's like, because of course he went out in the backyard where Taz is barking, and so he can just yell at Taz. So like, of course he did. And then there was another time I went out the front door. I had gone back to my room, and there were these pots that the plants that had once been in them had died, so I took them out in the front yard to dump the dirt out of them so I could, get them put up elsewhere. And when I did, I'm not even paying attention, and then my dad talks to me again because he's gone out the garage door this time and is just sitting on a chair right outside the garage door. I said, "You're hiding this way now?" He's like, "I'm not hiding." It's like, yeah. It's like, because every single time I've come out here and found where you're at, you're in a new spot. But, yeah. Okay, so there's one really weird thing. So since we're talking mice today, right? At one point, I realized there was this mouse trap under, by the air conditioning unit in the garage. There is, or the furnace, or whatever the fuck it is, there's this dog bath thing that my mom got for her and my dad to wash their dogs, but it's not real ideal to put in the bath. Okay, the way it has to work is the front 2 feet go in my bathtub, and the rest of it goes across the rest of the bathroom. So it's not really convenient. And I said it was going to basically work out that way when she first got it, right? So all the same, we end up with this new thing, right? And it's just kind of a hassle. So for several months, if not over, I think we're well over a year at this point, it has been out there just as a catch-all, which of course it's plastic. Not even like really heavy duty plastic, so if you put too much weight in it, it'll definitely break. But anyway, so this thing's out there, and my my dad has put a mouse trap underneath it because, we always have mouse traps in the garage. We discovered when we had to have something fixed for the AC, there's this like bar that runs from the thing outside to the thing in the garage, which is all the way across the garage, right? So it's like at the back of the garage, and the hole going outside was like this big, just open with the tube going through it. It's like, yeah, everything can get there. Yeah, I'm not doing that. Hold on. She's gonna have to wait. My mom's texting me and said something about if I come pick her up or whatever. What she should do is have her sister or her brother-in-law take her home on the golf cart, because she went over there on the golf cart. My cousin picked her up. But yeah, anyway, I don't know what they're doing, but I'm not home. So, yeah. So anyway, I look at this mouse trap and something's in it. It's like, okay. And I get my, it's like, the fuck am I looking at? So I get my flashlight on my phone and shine it down there. It's like, that looks like a freaking crab claw. It's like, that's weird. So it's like either a crab claw or the beak of something, but I was pretty sure it was more crab claw looking. So apparently it was a crawdad. The crawdad got hung up in the mouse trap. Apparently they, their arms fall off. So that would, be likened to the freaking lizards that drop their tails when there's predators, right? So that's that's my guess, I guess. But so this trap just had a crab claw in it, or a crawdad claw in it. It's like, that's weird. But apparently they had found one earlier this summer in there, and the crawdad, it's like, in all the junk, right? Because there's all sorts of junk in there, right? Because we're just collecting shit, and it's supposed to be my problem, and I'm not participating with that. Okay. She just mentioned her sister taking her, so that's probably, there we go. It's just catching on, right? She knows I randomly disappear in the evening sometimes and come back like an hour later, so, or sometimes 2 hours later, depending on what's going on. So yeah, I have stuff to take back to the library here in a few minutes, but anyway, so I had I used the little gripper things. I picked it up with the mouse trap, and took it out to the front, right next to the garage door, and left it out there. So then when my dad goes out there, and he's hiding out, I mentioned, I said, "You're hiding out here now, huh?" He says, "I'm not hiding out." He goes, "What it is sometimes," he said, you girls keep that house so damn cold, I have to come out here to warm up." So, sounds like a personal problem. Put more clothes on. He has sweats and everything, but he doesn't hardly ever wear them, because he would rather run around the house naked, like in the middle of the night and stuff. Yeah. Oh, and my mom asked him to do something, and he, it's like his way of trying to be cute and funny and disrespectful all in one, right? So he just, farts at her, and it sounds like he was damn near shitting himself, and I just said, "If you shit yourself, you will be cleaning it up." I said, "Nobody's cleaning that up for you." And my mom kind of chuckled about it, because of course, that's been an issue recently. But just damn people. I mentioned yesterday that my brother, I told him about my mom apologizing, and he said, "I would like to think she's turning over a new leaf, but I just can't bring myself to have that much hope for it," right? And then something else came up later, and we were talking about something with anxiety, and I commented on something with because of our mother, and he says, "Well, no, it's my obsessive compulsive disorder," because he was diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder in high school. I was like, yeah, even that comes from somewhere. So all that anxiety that you have attributed to this mental issue. It's like, I said, we've had this whole mind fuck with our mother being this royal pain in the ass for our entire existences, right? There was that conversation with my brother where I mentioned that I really started thinking about the that shit with the people where I, automatically sabotage myself so I could never have the connections with other people. It's like I didn't give anybody the chance to turn out to be decent or not, right? I just automatically assumed that because of how I'd been raised, I was too much for people. I was the problem, and therefore it wasn't worth opening myself up to the possibility of having other people hurt me, right? Because, my family's already got that down pat, so why did I need that from other people? That whole thing, just, now that I've been thinking on that one just really pisses me off. It's like, I've literally sabotaged any connection that could have been anything, right? Whether it's just a friend or whether it could have been anything else. I sabotaged that because I believed what they were telling me, that I was too much for people, and that people wouldn't be interested in actually connecting with me, right? Because if other people were interested in connecting with me, then my family might potentially lose me, and they didn't want that. So, yeah. So I was trained to set myself up for failure. Even that, like, that's something I've been struggling with the writing lately, is because, I've talked many times about how anytime there was the chance for something useful or worthwhile coming about and happening, or me learning more about what I'm here to do, like, I've always felt this writing is something that I'm supposed to be doing, and yet I have chronically self-sabotaged myself so I wouldn't do more than what I'd been raised to believe was I was able to do, or worthwhile of doing. It was always my worth that took the hit. It was, I wasn't worthy, I was too difficult, I was unlovable, I was all these things, and unworthy of succeeding at anything. To just be looking at these stories that I've told dozens of times through this new lens now, and realizing that I was trained to fuck myself over, to forever block myself from doing anything worthwhile. That's fucking shit. But at least I'm figuring it out now, right? So, yeah. I had this weird dream this morning, and like, it's just weird. Okay, so it was at my brother's new house, right? And in light of the scenario that they don't have a working AC at the moment, and it's going to be the 7th through the 9th, sometime in there, before somebody's going to be able to come out and fix it. So that is, kind of the backdrop of it, right? So in this dream, my brother is outside of the dining room, which, it's kind of weird because it seems like the window's up to here, but for that to be the case, he would have to be laying down on the ground outside because the windows are like a foot off the ground, right? Because Ziva loves low windows because she likes being able to just walk over to them and stare out, and that was one thing she was enjoying doing when we were unpacking their truck. Sorry, there was a... I know there is a spider in this vehicle somewhere, and I think it was just on my foot. He has been on the windshield the past several days when I've gone to go anywhere, and he was in the car when I went to leave, and I couldn't shoo him out. I tried, and he went up on like the back of the floor mat. It's like, well, rather than fighting with him, he just came for a ride with me. But I think he was definitely on my toes. But anyway, but yet my brother's standing outside of the window's open, and, you know, it's like up to here on him, but for that to be, it was basically like we were looking down to where he was at, and like he was normal height and everything, so it was just like the angle just seemed all weird. But I was inside the window, and it's like I was sitting at the table or something, and I think my mom was there too, and I was really preoccupied with the clouds and how weird the clouds looked. It's like, does clouds always look like that around here? And of course, you know, he's in Oklahoma, that's like Tornado Alley, right? So, I don't remember exactly what he said, but something about it's pretty common, or whatever. And this is driving me nuts, because there's like an inch of that's like my natural color. And yet when it's like that, all I see is this. So anyway, you know, I was really distracted by the clouds in that moment, right? So then my sister-in-law comes in the room, and she's like sitting on the ledge and of this window that she wouldn't be sitting on because it's really low to the ground. Right? But anyway, I decided to go to the bathroom in the dream, right? And it's like the master bathroom, but it's not where the master bathroom area is even. It was like from that space where everybody was at, you could look to what's actually Gracie's room, and there was like this garden tub in the corner, and, you know, the toilet was over on this other section. For some reason, I go in there and sit on the side of the tub like I'm going to pee in the tub. So that was kind of a weird thing. But then when I sit down, it like clicks, like, you know, like somebody, okay, so like the toilet seat hadn't been put down all the way, and you sit on it and it kind of clacks together, right? So it was that kind of noise, and it got people's attention. Which, why did I leave the door open? So that was the whole thing. But then, of course, you know, after it made that noise, then I moved over to the toilet, right? So it's like, I don't know what the whole thinking in that was. Oh, my mom's home now. But it was just like this whole weird series of events. But anyway, do my business in the toilet with the doors wide open for some reason. And as I'm getting up, my creepy uncle is walking out of the closet, which is like okay, so like where I could see my sister-in-law from the garden tub in the corner of the master bath that's actually in Gracie's room. That was weird. Next to that, like just a couple feet away, was the bathroom, or it was the closet door, and my uncle's randomly coming out of that, and it's like, why is he here in this space by himself anyway? Because like that's just a weird smattering of people anyway. I mean, it would make sense that I would be there with my mom at my brother's house, but not that my uncle would randomly be there and my aunt was nowhere around. That is trippy. Anyway, yuck. So it's just like this whole weird thing. But right, so I'm really, as I'm getting off of the toilet, my uncle's coming out of this closet right to me, and it's like, not okay. And it was like this slow motion sequence of events where I'm lifting my foot to, you would think, to kick him in the groin. And it was essentially that, but it was like slow motion placing foot and then just exerting a bunch of effort. It's just like, just a weird series of things, right? So, and then it kind of abruptly ended, I think, with Taz barking or something. But I was just like, the fuck was that all about? And I think that, like, the best I can figure is, like, when I start making shifts and gaining clarity for, like, this whole thing with the, not being able to maintain connections for myself, or setting myself up to fail in connecting with other people because that's what I was trained to do. It's like every now and then these dreams come up where it feels like, in this case, my uncle was sort of the plant, if you will, and he was there to somehow see if I would make these, or if I was making these connections, and he wasn't supposed to be in this space, and yet he was in this space. So it's like, it's just really weird. But I was kind of thinking about that a little bit this morning too. It's like, at this other level, with whatever's going on in the dream sphere, was a sort of means to show me that, like, there's things outside of me checking on me, basically checking in with these connections and seeing how I respond, and like, if it, like, it's trying to test me to see where I'm at, like, in my progress. I know that all sounds completely weird. It feels weird, honestly, but then, since I've been making these big connections here lately, yeah, it feels pretty weird too. So just is what it is, I guess. I had talked about the dream I had, after I started, I started following Aaron Dowdy and some of, like, his meditations and stuff that he had. I got some of his courses, and I was doing these meditations and whatnot. And one of the first experiences that I had, the first time I tried meditating, was like, it was like I was in this space where everything was black, and it was just like empty space, right? But there were these two purple discs, and one of them was like spinning this way, and then the other was kind of spinning, like one was upright and the other was just spinning around. And they were purple, and they had weird symbols on them, and it was like this kind of purple even. And I was staring at them and kind of fascinated with them and trying to figure out what they were. And it was just a weird little experience, and then it's over, right? The next morning, I'm waking up, and my bedroom at that time is the same bedroom space that I'm in now, even though there was a time where I switched it and it was my office. When I did the meditation, it was still my bedroom, right? And my bed is where it is now. So as I'm waking up, I move my head, or I'm like looking in the direction of the window that, I have the window AC unit in. And there's this gap between my bed and the window, right? In reality, there is a bed that is upright right there, or like on its side right there, that Gidget likes to lay on. But it's basically, the bed is basically the guest bed whenever I'm not there, right? So whenever I move my shit out, then that's what's staying behind in the guest area, right? So, so it was like that. It was just, there wasn't the bed there, right? There's just an empty space. And I'm looking over in that direction. It's like one, it's like this, like one of the grays, if you will, like an alien, right? So it's just like gray alien with the great big eyes and the great big alien-esque shaped head, right? So, but I looked at it, and it looked at me, and we kind of froze in this eye contact thing, and then it like disappeared. But I felt really strongly like I was being checked in on. at that point in time. Like when I woke up, and because I think that was probably what happened, was when the alien disappeared, I actually woke up. But yeah, so it was just this weird thing, and it kind of freaked me out. And then I stopped meditating for a long time because I wasn't sure how to wrap my head around that. It freaked me out, and I didn't want to start having crazy dreams all the time or whatever. So I was just like, maybe I just needed to chill from the meditation thing, because that was weird. Trippy as fuck. Don't know what to do with that. Right? So, so I didn't. But it was this weird experience, and it really, truly felt like at this other level, in another dimension, if you will, I was being checked on. And there too, kind of seemed like the dream this morning with my uncle was like this kind of plant to check in on me. So, yeah, like that's the big thing that I've been thinking about, is just like, the cords, that connect everybody. And it's like my family knows that they can't access me, they can't affect me like they used to. And they're trying to figure that out. But also that they don't know what to do with it, right? Because, because I just, they can't figure out how to bring me back in. Like my mom with the stuff with my cousin, she's trying to play on that piece where, I feel like my cousin's doing this thing and I should be doing my part to step up like my cousin is. It's like, fuck that, dudes. I'm 13 years older than that cousin, and if she, feels the need to go over there and hang out with my grandma, that is up to her. That is fine and dandy. I've moved beyond that because I realized how much my family is responsible for me being stuck and not being able to have my own life. And that is infuriating. But yeah, like it's very specifically that. And then especially like when my brother mentioned that he wanted to think that my mom was turning over a new leaf when I mentioned that she had apologized, but he just couldn't bring himself to be that optimistic. And it's like, that wasn't the thing that got me. What got me was when he said something and I was referring back to that anxiety piece, and I directed attention to, he calls it this thing that he was diagnosed with in high school, but even then, where did that come from? And yes, mental health issues run in our family, sure. Why is that? Because our family's fucking toxic, and it's like he wants to just lump it in as, we have mental health issues. It's a legitimate concern and blah, blah, blah. There's nothing else to it. That just is, take it at face value. But it's like, that is there to explain the other stuff. It's like, that was, psychology is basically, it's not because they know why these things exist or whatever. It's just a means of explaining what's going on that doesn't have to fully delve into the fact that a lot of what's going on is toxic connections, and we're being manipulated to try to make us believe that these toxic connections are normal, right? It's like, it might be common, but it's very much not normal, right? Just because a lot of people have these experiences, like narcissistic parents or whatever, that doesn't mean this is the normal. That's not what was the intended thing for creation. It's this thing that happened, and it's going to give you some experiences and teach you a lot about yourself and about the world around you. But ultimately, it's going to force you to, in my case, force me to find discernment, right? What is me wanting to be helpful and take care of somebody outside of myself because that is my nature to be that way, and what of it is because I feel like the world is somehow going to fall apart if I don't do this thing, right? I have to learn to discern those differences. So whereas my grandma and my mom, their worlds might be falling apart if I'm not bending over backwards to drain my energy on taking care of their bullshit. I don't care. Right? That one, I don't care. Now, if as a little kid and I see somebody being an asshole and I could do something or say something in that situation, I would like to think that I would do that. That said, one of my biggest regrets in life is actually a time I did not do that. And it was a time shortly after undergrad. I was working at the group home in Shelbyville. And it was grocery shopping night. And me and my coworker that was my BFF back then, we took the clients that week. And I had gone over to this one section to grab something we had forgotten. And I hear this woman telling her little 3-year-old daughter something to the effect of how it was her fault her daddy left. And I was like infuriated and I wanted to say something, but I'm also wearing the shirt that has the company logo on it. It's like, I'm going to get myself fucking fired if I say anything, and I walked away. In hindsight, I wish I would have followed through and said what I felt the need to say, which was, don't you blame that shit on that child. That is, whatever happened with that child's father, that is your fault. That is not the child's fault. The child is like 3. Do not dump that on a fucking child. But instead I walked away because I was afraid it would cause me to lose my job. Because, company logo and saying the thing while wearing the company logo. But has been one of those things that it's obviously still with me. I never forgot that. And ideally, moving forward, if I'm ever put in that situation again, ideally I'll say something. So, yeah. But on that note, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and take this shit back to the library since it's getting dark. Now that my lighting's better than it was. Yeah. I was talking, I just saw 7:19 on the timer up there. It made me think this morning when I was skating over here, there were like 3 cars. Of course, I talk about, the numbers that are going to follow me around. My great-grandfather, my great-grandmother, and then Tyler, the friend that died, and then the twin flame, right? So I'm over here skating, and the first way I went past this one car, and then on the way back that lap, I looked down and saw 7:19 on the license plate, which again, that's the date that Tyler died. So of course, there's a Tyler number right at me again. So yeah, that got my attention. But anyway, go ahead and wrap this up and go get this posted and all that fun stuff, and get back to my writing plan for tonight after I take this shit back to the library. So as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.